In 1324, one man walked out of West Africa and accidentally crashed the economy of an entire continent, and the world had no idea what had just happened. Welcome back to ancient African history, lost civilizations. If you are new here, this channel is dedicated to telling African history the way it deserves to be told, with depth, with evidence, and with respect for the truth. Before we dive in, drop a comment right now and tell me where you are watching from and how you are doing today. I genuinely want to know. Now, let's talk about a man who was so wealthy that his casual generosity caused an economic crisis that lasted over a decade. Most people who have heard of Mansa Musa know one thing: that he was rich. Fabulously, incomprehensibly rich. Some modern estimates have tried to place his wealth at $2 trillion. That number gets thrown around a lot. But here is what almost nobody talks about. What actually happened when that wealth met the world? Not the legend. The documented, recorded, Arabic source-verified chain of events that unfolded between 1324 and 1325. That is the story we are telling today. Here is the question that should be sitting in your mind right now. How does a man's generosity devastate an economy? Stay with me, because the answer is more fascinating than anything the headlines have told you. By the early 14th century, the Mali Empire had reached its territorial and economic peak. Mansa Musa, its ruler, sat atop a system that controlled nearly half of the old world's gold supply exported from West Africa. Let that settle for a moment. Half. The empire taxed every ounce of gold, copper, and salt that moved through its borders. Gold nuggets belonged exclusively to the Mansa, the king. Only gold dust circulated in trade. The empire's wealth was not an accident. It was a carefully engineered system built over generations. Gold moved north across the Sahara in camel caravans. Salt moved south. The trade routes connecting Mali to North Africa and Egypt were active, organized, and enormously profitable. This was the financial engine that made everything that followed possible. In 1324, Mansa Musa made a decision that would rewrite how the world saw Africa. As a devout Muslim ruler, he prepared to make the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. This was not unusual for Muslim rulers of the time. What was unusual was the scale on which he chose to do it. He left his son Muhammad to govern the empire in his absence. And then he left Mali with what medieval Arabic historians described as a procession that had never been seen before. According to al-Umari, one of the most detailed Arabic historians of this era, a man who personally interviewed eyewitnesses in Cairo who had met Musa, the procession reportedly included upward of 12,000 servants, each one dressed in brocade and Yemeni silk. Each one reportedly carrying about 1.8 kilograms of gold bars. Heralds dressed in silk walked ahead carrying gold staffs. The caravan reportedly included 80 camels, each loaded with between 23 and 136 kilograms of gold dust. Now, modern historians are careful to note that medieval figures were sometimes exaggerated. Some accounts place the total number of people in the procession at 60,000. Whether the exact numbers are precise or somewhat inflated, what is not in dispute is this: the scale was extraordinary, and the impact was real and documented. The journey covered approximately 2,700 miles, and in July 1324, Mansa Musa arrived at the outskirts of Cairo. He camped for 3 days near the pyramids of Giza. On the 19th of July, 1324, he crossed the Nile into Cairo. Think about that image for a second. The ruler of the wealthiest empire in the world, camping in the shadow of the pyramids, preparing to enter the most powerful city on the African continent. Egypt at the time was ruled by Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad of the Mamluk Sultanate, one of the most stable and powerful rulers in the Islamic world. When Musa was brought before the Sultan, a moment of diplomatic tension arose. The Sultan expected Musa to prostrate himself before him. Musa initially refused. When he did eventually bow, he reportedly stated that he bowed to God alone, not to men. Despite the tension, the two rulers exchanged gifts, and Musa settled into the Karafa district of Cairo. He befriended the governor of Cairo, Ibn Amir Hajib. He stayed for approximately 3 months. He built a mosque every Friday during his journey. He gave gold to officials. He gave gold to the poor. He traded gold freely for goods and souvenirs. And then the unintended consequences began. Here is where the story shifts from impressive to genuinely astonishing. According to al-Umari, who recorded this from direct eyewitness accounts, before Musa's arrival in Cairo, a mithqal of gold, which is approximately 4.5 grams, was worth 25 silver dirhams on the Egyptian market. After Musa spent months distributing gold throughout Cairo, the value of gold dropped significantly. Al-Umari recorded that it fell to less than 22 dirhams. That may not sound dramatic in numbers, but in practice it meant that gold, the currency of the medieval economy, had been devalued across Egypt and beyond. Merchants lost. Traders lost. Entire markets were disrupted. And according to the historical record, it took at least 12 years for gold prices in the region to recover. One man's pilgrimage created a currency crisis that lasted over a decade. Now, and this is the part that rarely gets told, what happened on the return journey? If you think this story ends with Musa returning to Mali in triumph, it does not. On the journey back from Mecca, things fell apart. Musa and his vast entourage had spent so much gold on the outward journey that by the time they returned toward Cairo, they had run out of money. The man who had flooded Egypt with gold was now borrowing it. According to al-Umari and Ibn Khaldun, Musa was forced to borrow from Egyptian merchants at high interest rates. One of the merchants named in the historical sources is Siraj al-Din. Musa sold goods he had purchased in Cairo before the Hajj to raise funds. Some sources say he partially repaid his debts. Others suggest the lenders were never fully compensated. The return journey itself was brutal. Many members of the caravan died from cold, starvation, and bandit raids. Supplies were exhausted. The grand procession that had stunned Cairo on its way out arrived back diminished, weakened, and in debt. Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad, to his credit, reportedly returned Musa's earlier generosity with gifts of his own. Even in his depleted state, Musa remained a figure commanding respect. He returned to Mali around 1325. Here is what makes this story genuinely significant beyond the spectacle. Everything we know about this pilgrimage comes from real, named medieval historians, al-Umari, Ibn Khaldun, and Ibn Battuta, who visited Mali later during the reign of Musa's brother. These are not legends passed down orally. These are written records, preserved in Arabic, cross-referenced across multiple independent sources. The economic disruption was real. The borrowing was real. The human cost of the return journey was real. This was not just a rich man on a religious trip. This was a geopolitical event. A West African king walked into the heart of the medieval world, upended its economy, negotiated with its most powerful rulers, and then made it home, broke, in debt, and still one of the most discussed figures in Arabic historiography for centuries afterward. Now let me ask you something. Is there a topic in African history that you feel hasn't been explored enough? Drop it in the comments below. I will research it and make a video on it. Your questions drive this channel. What this story challenges is a narrative many of us absorbed without questioning, that medieval Africa was peripheral to world history. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage is documented proof that in 1324, a ruler from West Africa caused a currency crisis in Egypt, conducted diplomacy at the highest levels of the Islamic world, and commanded the attention of historians from Cairo to Timbuktu. That is not a footnote. That is the center of the story. If this kind of content matters to you, African history told seriously, with real sources, real depth, and no shortcuts, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell. This channel is still growing, and your subscription is a direct act of support. It truly means the world to me. Let me leave you with this. Mansa Musa left Mali with enough gold to destabilize a continent's economy. He returned home in debt, having borrowed money from the very merchants he had overwhelmed with wealth just months earlier. He built mosques. He befriended governors. He refused to bow to kings. And 12 years after he passed through Cairo, the gold markets were still recovering. So here is my question for you, and I want you to answer this in the comments because I think it will make for a great conversation. What do you find more remarkable? The fact that one man's generosity caused a decade-long economic collapse, or the fact that history almost forgot to tell us about it? Tell me the part of this story that hit you hardest. History does not disappear. It is forgotten. And we are here to remember it together.